What sounds like a dream job but actually sucks? I worked as a private investigator. It was what you picture only maybe 1% of the time. The rest of the time it was just sitting there and waiting for something to happen. It was super boring. See that guy in the neck brace? Stare at that neck brace for 6 weeks and let me know if it comes off. What if you report that he's actually in a lot of pain and give examples of him being too weak to lift up his child and other evidence which backs up his claim? Will the insurer still try to weasel out of paying the full amount anyway? That is not what they hire you for, and they don't care. I thought working in a video game store would be awesome. It was a store similar to GameStop, but we also dealt with retro consoles and games going all the back to the Atari 2600. I imagined it as being able to finally share all my useless video game knowledge with people, play video games in my downtime, and helping customers. Instead, people treated us like a pawn shop and would get mad when I wouldn't give them $50 for a PS2 basketball game no one has cared about since 2003. Also, the store owner only wanted attractive young girls working the store in order to bring in customers, and I happened to be a 26-year-old chubby guy. I worked at GameStop. It was boring as FPeep and the hours sucked ass. FPeep retail. I worked at the Aussie version of GameStop. They made us work after the shop closed without pay to visual merch the store. They also asked us to do sales setup unpaid. In saying that, retail and hospitality formed a lot of my work discipline for me. Sounds like wage theft. I worked for GameStop. This guy's telling the truth. And yes, it is. I often hear joking remarks from perverted men saying I wish I was a gynecologist. I'd get to look at vaginas all day. I don't think they've thought it through very well. I told a guy friend my gyno was a male, and he said, "Doesn't it bother your husband that a man is looking at your vag?" I told him there's more to it than that, and that the guy probably sees at least 50 a day. 50, many of which are diseased. Bouncer/security at the topless pools in Vegas hotels. You spend all day running around the pool yelling at douches to stop taking pictures. Any particular stories that come to mind? I was just at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas last weekend. Their European pool is located away from the other pools and features its own bar, which always has a smaller line than the other pool bars. So I usually stay at that pool for the easier access to pina coladas as well as Y-free boobs. Now granted, like most European beaches and topless pools, about 80% of the topless chests are the kinds you don't want to see. Septuagenarians love sunbathing apparently. Ever so often though a fit, firm 20-year-old will walk around that's when security has to go to work. I saw the Caesar's Palace staff walk over to the same cabana bed literally 5 times and be asked to show their phone's photo app. They kept getting caught taking pics, and they were pretty blatant about it. I was surprised security let them off 4 times before finally kicking them out. I then saw them warn like 16 other groups of guys within the span of an hour. Again, you'd think this would be great, seeing the occasional supermodel looking woman disrobing. Nope, you gotta maintain tough guy frame and deal with drunk dude brothers most of the time. Most people don't realize that the iPhone, and I'd assume other phones, has a restriction setting. When I was in rehab they had specific times you could use your electronics for business, but one condition was that you had to unlock it, give it to them, and they would set up a one-time code to disable the camera. When you left they pop in the 4-digit code and poof, the camera app is back. Are you serious? I've never heard of this feature. Settings general restrictions. Video game tester. My old roommate was one for decades and he hooked me up with a part-time gig when they were hiring. Imagine the most annoying, stupid, trivial bullspeep parts of video games that make you want to rage quit. Speep with only that, in an unfinished setting with tons of unrendered speep for 8 hours a day. Exactly, many people forget that as a video game tester you don't just get to play the fun parts of the game, like it's a hobby. When it's your job you need to spend all your time trying every way you can to break the game, so you can find out the problems before it goes to market. Personally, if I had to work in games, I'd rather work in the programming and creative end. You need to spend all your time trying every way you can to break the game. I think even putting it like that sets the wrong tone. Trying to break the game sounds like fun. That's how I spent the majority of time in Halo. Do wacky speep and see if you can launch yourself outside of the level. From what I've heard mostly from testimonials from the trenches, I'll admit it's more like you spend all day running into the same wall over and over and over, then entering every menu combination, then run into the wall again, and you have to repeat it all with a different item equipped each time. And it's not gonna be on Assassin's Creed. It's gonna be on Barbie's My Little Princess Sparkle Pony, or whatever. You should take a look at r/Dwarf Fortress. That's a great game for weird mechanics being exploited. Like the guy who managed to kidnap a necromancer and use him to increase bacon yields. Zombies are stronger than regular animals, which corresponds to more muscle, i.e. 40% more meat. Being a veterinarian. I don't know if it sounds like a dream job, but a bunch of people I meet say they always wanted to be one. Oh, you like animals? Then have some. But do something else for a job, unless you also like the idea of killing a lot of them. I never got used to it. Being a roadie for a popular band. Everyone thinks you just get to hang out with the artists all day and travel the world, but you work long days and are constantly either on a bus or a plane. You don't get the time to really visit the cities you are in because you are in the venue working, and the second the show is done and you get everything struck, then you are right back onto the bus or in a van on the way to the airport. I dunno. I think I'd enjoy that. Maybe I'm just already jaded enough to know that it wouldn't be fun 24/7. But I've been in bands all my life and I actually enjoy loading in, sound checking, etc. But to add to why it isn't as fun as people, is no band on earth you are going to enjoy 50 times in a row. Even if you like the band, a lot of roadies work for bands they don't even particularly care for. The level of enjoyment you get from the performance gets old real fast. Wedding planner. Someone is always pissed at you. Even if the bride and groom are chill, there's a mother/mill, maid of honor or vendor unhappy. And frankly, at the end of the day, you want the client to feel they've been treated fairly, but you really need the vendor to leave happy. You can't afford to alienate someone in the industry, especially in a smaller town. This is actually why full service planning is better than day off for the planner. It's easier to avoid misunderstandings when you're involved in contract negotiations from the get-go. Working at a dog kennel. Thought it'd be fun to play with 40 dogs, I mean it was, but I spent most of my time cleaning dickie and getting pissed on. How bad were the smells? Out in the yard we had bins we put the poop in. Opening those was probably the most disgusting thing I have/ever will smell. Shooting instructor or gun store manager, assuming you're into guns. I did both and got tired of dealing with idiots. As a shooting instructor, I dealt with many people that considered themselves experts, even though they had no reason to, and so often, they were barely more than novice when it came to shooting ability and or gun safety. As a gun store manager, I dealt with same expert mentality. So many people think that because they own guns, they are automatically an expert. I'm from the UK, so I've no access to guns. However, I've played the Time Crisis arcade video games, so therefore I'm an expert. Well, there you go. In all seriousness though, some people really do think this way. Being a high-powered attorney at a big law firm. Yes, you make 120, 200k. But most of them are actively drinking themselves to death due to stress, horrible working conditions and hours, and having no life/work balance. Edit. Yes, some big law firm lawyers do make 200, 400k, if they can survive this peep show for more than 3-5 years. Most don't. I'm an attorney, and no amount of money in the world would convince me to go through the big law thing. I'm a government attorney instead, so basically the total opposite situation. Low stress, great hours, happy coworkers, the work/life balance other people would die for. I don't get paid much at all, but being able to actually enjoy my life and have friends and hobbies is worth it to me. Not paid much? Like in comparison to other people who have gone to law school? Or are you working with a teacher's salary? Anecdotally, my uncle has worked as a government lawyer and was paid 140k. Also, high-powered private attorneys can make significantly more than 200k. Around here 400k would be pretty normal for a successful partner at a prospering firm. Working on a winery/vineyard, highly smelly. You get to see all the speep other than grapes that go into the press and therefore into the wine. The grape bins are a nesting ground for black widows, etc. People always think it sounds glamorous when I tell them where I used to work. Couldn't be more the opposite. I'm done with wine for good. Thanks for this. This is true of every food. Reading any type of food safety guideline will either give you an appreciation for your immune system or lead to you starving to death. Animal trainer. People think you're playing with dogs/horses/dolphins/tigers/ what have you all day, but hands-on work is the smallest part of the job. The rest of the time you're cleaning enclosures, preparing meals, and filling out paperwork. You do this the 24th of July 365 in the middle of summer and the dead of winter, all weather conditions. And the training sessions? Endless repetition. I work in veterinary medicine and everyone thinks it's all puppies and kittens. Lol no. It's fractious cats trying to murder you, and giant dogs that really don't want their nails trimmed, and so much poop. Don't even get me started on anal glands. Yup. I love the whole "you have the best job ever" routine. Yeah. I have bruises on my body that my Gino looks at sideways, even after I explain the nature of my job. Oh. And the scars. Not to mention the sad diagnoses. And the euthanasias. And all the people who think I'm their therapist. No. I don't really care about your marital problems. Just tell me about your cat. Puppies and kittens are the freaking best, though. Make me smile every day, despite the rest of the literal speep. Nursing. People who say I want to be a PD nurse have no clue what it is like to work with the kids' arsehole parents. No part of nursing sounds appealing to me. Being around sick people all day, working ridiculous shifts, knowing that people's lives are in your hands, having to deal with some gross speep on the daily. No thanks. I don't need to go anywhere near that field. It's rough, but there is an upside to it. I've been told having patients get better and walk out on their own is a great feeling, and you are making a direct and meaningful difference to other people's well-being. Acting isn't great, especially if you're a kid, and especially if you're a musical theater kid/teen. There is so much pressure and pushing around, and if you haven't popped out the womb dancing, singing and acting, trained in ballet, tap, jazz, perfect vibrato and diction and emotion, you are likely going to be overlooked every time. It's also not hugely lucrative, unless you're at the very top. I looked at London West End salaries. Even at the top end of the equity pay scale, these people are earning something like 32k, which in London is frankly a struggle. 32k per year to do the same song and dance routines twice a day, and probably just a few hours apart. On the West End you usually get matinee performances at 2:30 p.m. and the main evening one at 7:30 p.m. also, possibly for years on end. I earn more than that just sitting in an office for half the effort and exertion. Also take into consideration that a lot of families move to London/Nick/La so their child could act, so there is usually a pretty big hit to the family pocketbook so their kid can be a star. Then if they do get a gig, they are limited to the number of times a week they can act, so even if they are the star, they are only the star 4 shows a week and somebody else is the star for the other shows. Then of course as soon as you grow you are out of the show and replaced with a smaller, singing and dancing version of yourself. And these are the kids that are good enough to make the big shows. The not so good ones have all the same bull speep, but they are on the road traveling. It's a pretty rough gig for an adult, let alone for a child. Dealing cards in a casino is about as much fun as trying to keep a room full of drunk, abusive parents from beating the speep out of you because the cable's out and the fridge is empty. Does that seem like a dream job to people? I always assumed it was like any customer facing service gig. Speep. Same. There are no customer oriented dream jobs. Not even fancy casinos or hotels. People often make the assumption that, just because a place is fun to visit, it therefore must be fun to work at. Like amusement parks. A lot of my friends worked at Kings Island simply because of the perks. Free entry, parking, I think food and drinks were included or a discount. Many of them worked from open to close several days a week. 13 or 14 hours in the sun. Dealing with dumbass people who won't listen to instructions and really don't listen to you at all. I don't know anyone who worked rides or entertainment who really enjoyed working there. I've known a few people who have worked at Disney and they fall into two camps. Greatest place ever to work, or hell on earth. I was almost going to include theme parks in my examples too. The kinds of people you'd have to deal with there. Everyone's in vacation mode, which apparently means freedom from behaving like a responsible adult or actually managing their kids. The repetition of going through the same boarding of the rides every 2 minutes. The mess people leave behind. Ugh.